Hi, my name is Igor Kafetz, and this is the List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle. Welcome back to another edition of the List Building Lifestyle with your host, Igor Kafetz. I've always been an advocate of the fact that if you want to master something, you have to immerse yourself and create an environment in which that skill set or idea or belief system can easily take root. And everything from that moment forward that you do will be governed by those ideas. For example, when I decided to go into the field of influence and persuasion, when I decided that I would like to influence other people for a living, I would like to master this skill set and to be able to put some words on paper, put some words on video, and have other people give me money for that or do things that I asked them to do. When I decided that that would be my quote-unquote job, I had to make a conscious decision to create an environment in which that skill could actually live. And the reason that I kind of did it, I think, is unconscious really, but I felt deep down that unless I do it this way, then something else will take my attention, something else will steal my focus and attention away from this skill set, and I will not be able to foster it. And as a result, it's sort of like a byproduct of that, anything that I consume, anything that is within my environment, I always look at it from with that sort of set of glasses. So it really comes down to like talking to someone and always consciously looking for all kinds of different traits and facts and observations that either reaffirm a belief about marketing or help me develop my marketing skill set, my influence skill set. And it can go as far as choosing the TV shows that you watch. In fact, as a result of becoming an internet marketer and becoming a student of influence, I find that it's harder for me to watch a movie or a TV show or read a book, like a fiction book, that does not deliver any useful lessons in that department in my life. So that is why in today's episode, what I want to do, even though I've been kind of slacking off of the TV lately ever since I moved to Canada. I haven't had much time to actually just sit down and watch TV. So I really had to cut it down to just a couple of shows. But what I wanted to do today is I wanted to share with you the 11 TV shows that I watch or used to watch that I believe make me a better marketer, which basically means the TV shows that you can watch, that if you watch them with the right frame. Okay, it's really important to remember here. It also depends on the kind of frame you approach something with. That can make you a better marketer, a better influencer, or a better thinker, which, again, all three, as far as I'm concerned, are really useful outcomes, right? The really useful benefits of watching TV. Because most people, when they sit down to watch TV, they do it to sort of disconnect. What most people do is they use TV as a form of a drug. They binge watch a TV series just because that feels better than doing any actual work. I used to do that myself. When I was just getting started in marketing, the first 2.5 years, that's a very critical time in any marketer's life. And what I noticed that I would do anytime I would have to do something difficult, that's something that I would consider difficult, for example, writing an email or building a sales funnel or creating something, which at the time I did not have a habit of doing, but is now I recognize as one of the most important habits you can have in your business, and that is to create, meaning creating content, creating marketing, creating sales funnels, creating anything. Like the mere act of recording this podcast in and of itself is a creation process which advances my business forward. Therefore, any time in the first 2.5 years that I needed to create something, I would kind of retreat back into the habit of binge watching TV shows. And at the time, I had 2 TV shows that I loved to binge watch, and those were South Park and Top Gear. And I'll get to those in a bit. So My ideal outcome for this episode for you listening right now is to help you choose the right TV shows you can watch so you can improve your skill set even during your downtime and get your fair dose of entertainment. Because obviously, we all need some downtime. We all need some time to just decompress, as my friend David Deacle says. Sometimes you just got to decompress. So even when you're decompressing, it feels really nice to be doing that and still learning something that you can use in your business. So that is why I'm going to share with you the 11 TV shows that make you, in my opinion, a much better marketer and a much better influencer. So first, my I would say all-time number one favorite TV show, House of Cards. Unfortunately, this show has been discontinued due to Kevin Spacey's recent, gay scandal or whatever, which I think, honestly, I don't care if the guy's gay. I don't care if he molested anyone. I just wish they bring back the show. And I know how, inconsiderate that sounds coming from me, but I just enjoy the show so much. And the last episode ended on such a cliffhanger that I have to see the next one. I really hope they bring back Spacey and they bring back the House of Cards because the show is incredible. Since the very first episode, that show really grabbed me because it's all about power games. It's all about, so what this show's really did for me, it gave me a glimpse into the world of politics. First and foremost, and kind of the world where the state of the nation is being determined every single moment. When things can go wrong and now you're like fighting another country, or you're on the verge of crisis with China, and now you have to go, the hero has to go and fix that, while at the same time having three other enemies trying to take him down because they don't like him. And so the hero, Francis, he's really good at not losing, this guy. And this is what I really respect about him. Like, it doesn't matter how difficult the situation is, it doesn't matter how unlikely his success is, but he always finds a way to not lose. Like, he may not always win, he may need to compromise, but he will never lose. And he always finds that way, even when the situation seems like it's completely out of his control. He never ever loses, and he always faces the challenges head on. Now, not only that, but what this guy's doing as well is he's always playing with high stakes. So he's never afraid to raise the bar for what's going on. He's always sort of like walking on the edge, right? Balancing on a high wire. And that makes this whole experience even more exciting for me. It just thrills me because every single time I'm asking myself, why would he do that? Why would he not just kind of settle and just stay where he is and be happy with what he got? But, he always raises the stakes. He lives dangerously considering his position. And to me, the guy's an inspiration because he's always able to not lose. And there's a phrase in one of the episodes, I think in season 4 or season 5, and he talks about it. He talks about, you can't afford to lose. Like, you may not win, but you better not lose, because the moment you lose, it's over. And they remember you, he says, until you lose for the first time. But for as long as you don't lose, for as long as you are still on your feet, still dancing, they will remember you. And I just find that super inspirational. I really enjoy the show. I highly recommend watching it. In addition, there's other things about it that really stand out. First off, the whole body language situation. This is something that I've been discussing with my friend Lana, who runs my office. She's been paying attention to Lana. She's really great at pointing out the tiny little details, which I often miss. So then I go back and I watch the show again, and I think it like 3 times now, and I pay attention to the looks and the body language and the tone of the voice. Like, everything is perfect down to the tiny little detail, and it just standing ovation for the people who create the show, because they just understand human psychology better than 99.99% of people out there. And the more you watch the show, the more you understand where I'm getting at. So just go ahead, put it on your binge list if you wish. It's called House of Cards, and you have to get it. It's on Netflix. Now the other one that is another top 5 favorite of mine is Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad, and I wrote a lot about it. One of the reasons why I love Breaking Bad is because it's a story of a loser, of somebody who's a school teacher, a chemistry school teacher, who's really smart, but who obviously settled in life. He settled for mediocre, boring life. And he gets the news that he's got cancer. Now, at that point, under a certain circumstance, he comes across a world of drugs, and he recognizes that his knowledge and skill set allows him to create drugs and sell them so he can get rich. In other words, he can quickly make a lot of money and tuck that money away for his family. But what ends up happening throughout the show is that through this journey of becoming a drug dealer and a drug producer, he kind of falls into this world of drugs, obviously, and crime. But in addition, it becomes a playground for him to achieve personal growth, and he starts taking control of his life. In his journey to doing so, he's also got this sidekick, Jesse, who he's got this love-hate relationship with, who used to be his student in high school, but is now like an up-and-coming drug dealer. And together they start doing all kinds of crazy stuff, while while Walter's the hero, while Walter's brother-in-law is the head of the DEA or the FBI, whatever. So basically, he's coming after him without knowing that it's Walter. So the show is incredible. You kind of have to push yourself through the first couple of episodes. You kind of have to make yourself watch them, but then you get hooked. And from that point, it's just just an amazing show with lots of lessons on how to be ballsy, how to be more daring, how to just step up to the plate and play on a higher level, which again I find to be inspiring, because oftentimes I find myself playing on a smaller level in life. I often regret not playing on a higher level only years later than I know that I could have much earlier. So Breaking Bad is another one, definitely in the top 5 my favorites. The next one is actually from the same people who created Breaking Bad. It's called Better Call Saul. Now, Saul Goodman is a character in Breaking Bad. He's a lawyer, and he's this really slick lawyer that manipulates people and uses all the possible and impossible loopholes, breaks the law, does whatever he needs to do in order to get the job done and save his ass from disasters and really dangerous people. So this guy, he was so good. The character was so good. They actually created a show for him, just specifically for him, and the show takes us to way before Walter White and the Breaking Bad. It takes us to the story of how Saul Goodman was created, and so it's an incredible story of success. It's an incredible entrepreneurial journey, because he did not have like a lawyer degree or whatever. He had a brother who was a lawyer, had a law firm, and he started out in his brother's mailroom, and the way life sort of turned out is that he needed to go from this criminal, because he started out as a criminal, as a scam artist. He would try to rip people off and get them to pay, to bribe him not to file lawsuits. Like, he was a professional sewer, and he stole people's watches. He'd done all kinds of crazy stuff, but then he decides to step up and become a lawyer, which is true American story. Criminal becomes lawyer. It's like, it doesn't get any more Hollywood-like than that. And the show is shot in the exact same style and in the exact same frame, if you will, as Breaking Bad, with great attention to detail and with just showing you how to overcome challenges and how to solve problems. Because once again, Saul Goodman faces scenarios that require incredible creativity in solving those problems and challenges and scenarios, and he's often up against people much more powerful and much smarter than he is, and in spite of that, he's able to find a way to succeed. Not always. I mean, sometimes he loses, but a lot of times he succeeds. In addition, there's another character in that show that's also in Breaking Bad, and that I don't remember the guy's name, but he's an ex-cop, and this guy is just like a Sherlock Holmes, but the American old version. Somebody who's like really really tired. He's got these huge bags under his eyes. Like the guy's just tired, and he's a security guard, but ex-cop, and he's helping out Saul every now and again. And they also show in parallel his life of how he's just getting by and doing these odd jobs, sort of GTA style, where he's going out to be a bodyguard for someone, or like it's just a really really cool show with really interesting characters and really interesting life stories, while presenting you with lots of examples of how you can creatively solve problems. So that's why I like Better Call Saul. Now, the next one is actually a sitcom. It's called Silicon Valley, and this is a sitcom about a company called Pied Piper that is basically a file compression mechanism. Okay. Now, this guy, he's just a programmer. He lives in an incubator and he codes for a living for someone. And then he discovers this algorithm. It gets public and becomes one of the biggest things out there. And throughout the show, while it's really, really funny, what it shows you is how completely incompetent people try to run a high-level Silicon Valley business. So first and foremost, what this show does for me, it actually reminds me how lucky I am to be in the information marketing space and not being a Silicon Valley programmer or developer, because these guys have it much worse, much worse than we do. It is much easier for us, for information marketers and internet marketers, to start a business and start making really good living and just be free, be our own bosses, than it is to build a multi-million dollar software company, because when that happens, you're literally a prisoner of your business in a way where you can't do anything without getting approval of at least 5 other people. Now, not only that, but the character Richard Hendricks, he's so incompetent, and he lacks confidence. He does not have any public speaking skills. Like, all he can do is just code. So the only thing he can actually talk to is his computer. And as you understand, to run a business, you need a bunch of different skills. You need to be able to negotiate. You need to be able to have that vision. You need to have a backbone of some kind. You need to, to have some connections. And so he's making every single mistake a business owner can make, and just really, really funny to watch that. And how, again, just like other shows that I mentioned so far, in spite of doing it wrong, in spite of making all these mistakes, still somehow he's able to advance towards his goals. And oftentimes, another big lesson from the show is that oftentimes he sets out to achieve something, and that doesn't work out because of the mistakes he's making, because of circumstances he did not take into account. And that leads him into a discovery that then sparks a different path that is much better than the path that he was on, which is oftentimes that's how it happened for me in marketing. I would set out to create something, I would set out to get something, but then in that process of discovery, I would stumble into a completely different belief or fact or accidental success that I would then take to the next level, which is how I discovered solo ads. Solo ads were just a means of getting traffic for my funnels. I never planned to become the biggest solo ad agency owner in the world. But it did happen as a result of just me kind of figuring out solo ads. And then in that process, I'm like, oh, wait, what if I did this? And then I took it to a different direction, and the rest is history. So Silicon Valley, highly recommended if you want to just have a really good laugh and at the same time get some business lessons. Now, the next one is Homeland. Now, Homeland is very dear to my heart for 2 reasons. First off, it's been created by an Israeli or a bunch of Israelis. There's actually an identical show in Israel with the exact same concept, only what happens between Israel and Palestine and other Middle Eastern countries, while Homeland happens between USA and Middle East. But in addition to that, the reason Homeland is so interesting, especially the first 3 seasons, is because the most incredible, the most unlikely, the most outrageous scenario actually comes true, which in life, it happens. Like, we're not ready to it. We often kind of brush things off and we hope for the best, and we say things like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. But a lot of times it does happen to you. A lot of times things do happen, and you have to be ready for them. And so the character Carrie, she's got this thing where she's able to see through a really complicated web of spies, a web of conspiracies, and she's able to kind of reverse engineer that without having, at first glance, without having anything that might point her in the right direction. So that is why it's like kind of like a Sherlock Holmes kind of detective story, but in the context of the Middle East and the war that the Middle East has with the rest of the world, which I find to be just very, close to my heart, like I said, because I've been involved in that conflict firsthand. I've lived in a country that gets bombed, by another Middle Eastern country. So this dynamic, this constant state of tension and pressure and spy games, I just happen to love that stuff. And observing the way the character deals with issues and is able to pivot constantly when another door and another door and another door gets shut in, slammed in her face, it is inspiring to me to watch. So these are the first 5 shows, and as if you noticed, a lot of them have a common theme, and that is a problem-solving exercise. Okay? And the reason that is important is because as an entrepreneur, that's what you are. You're a problem solver. That's all you're doing all day. You're either solving problems for yourself or you're solving problems for other people. And recently I hosted Armin Morin, one of the most, I would say, experienced internet marketers out there. And he shared that his entire career was about overcoming a problem for himself and then selling that solution to other people. That's what he built his entire business on. So as an entrepreneur, anything that you watch, any TV show or any story you read where you get to learn how to better solve problems, that will usually benefit you simply because that is your business. Your business is solving problems. In fact, we can even take this a level higher than that. And another person I interviewed on the show, Mark Manson, and you should really check out his blog at markmanson.net. He talks about how life is nothing but a big problem-solving exercise. And what you're doing at every point in your life is you're just choosing which problems you want to deal with, right? So if you're choosing to have a job, you're choosing to deal with all kinds of problems associated with a job, like a boss and small paycheck and this looming threat of losing your income at any point based on someone else's whim and all that kind of stuff. Or as an entrepreneur, you choose to solve different sets of problems. For example, how to drive traffic, how to pay your taxes, how to get better customers, how to deal with difficult customers, and so on and so forth. So it's always a problem-solving exercise. And oftentimes what I see is people who fail at internet marketing or at marketing in general or just at running their own businesses, they suck at solving problems. Not because they lack the creativity to do it, but because they see each problem as a huge wall that's, impenetrable, unlikely to get solved sort of problem. And that's a mistake, because the more problems you'll solve, the better marketer you become, the more money you'll make. Therefore, you should welcome problems in your life. You just have to get better at solving them. And that would be my primary advice about that. So moving on, we got 6 more shows to cover, and we're gonna kind of speed through them. The 6th one is Death Note. Now, Death Note is the only anime on this list. It's a cartoon. It's a Japanese cartoon show, and there's also a movie actually, but the movie kind of sucks. So you better just watch the original Japanese TV show cartoon. The Death Note quite literally is problem solving on steroids. It is incredible because the story takes place in a Japanese city where a really smart kid finds a notebook that fell from the sky, and this is the only like far-fetched thing about the show, but he finds a notebook that fell from the sky that's called the Death Note. And so what happens is he can write anyone's name in that notebook as long as he knows how they look, and he can describe how he wants them to die and when, and like every single thing about it, about their death, and it actually takes place. And the first thing that this kid does is he starts killing criminals in prisons because he believes that people who are just really bad for the society, that have done unforgivable crimes. People have like 27 life sentences, and people who've killed other people, and they're not likely to change. He decides that he's just going to kill them. And so he starts doing that. And as he does, they bring, obviously, the government is like going nuts and they don't understand what's going on. And so they bring this detective whose name is L. And this detective starts looking up this kid. Now imagine how unlikely he is to find him, given the fact that the kid can just write your name in a notebook and you die. Yet the show, throughout the entire show, L is always like one or two steps behind the kid, and it's incredible. And it's like this constant battle between them, the battle of the minds, that is just mind-boggling. And the strategies that L is using to find the kid are also mind-boggling. It's like the things you least expect for a detective to do. And when you really look at that show from a marketer's perspective, that is actually very, very useful for you to learn, because the moment you become unpredictable to your market, the moment you become what Frank Kern likes to call the pattern interrupter, right? Somebody who interrupts lots of these marketing patterns, that's the moment when you start getting much better results with your marketing. If you are a cliche, if you are boring and predictable in the way you deliver your marketing, then the marketplace will punish you by not buying from you. So Death Note, absolutely incredible. Definitely in my top 5 all-time favorite TV shows. Now, the next one is Westworld. You probably heard of Westworld. You probably heard about it because of all the sex and violence and killing and blood and this. Like I think the only show that actually rivals Westworld in the amount of blood spilling and sex is Game of Thrones, which did not make it on this list because I watch Game of Thrones purely for entertainment purposes. Other than that, the only other thing that I can say about Game of Thrones is that each character is so vivid and specific that is interesting, and you can structure your marketing around characters if you want, but mostly it's just for pure entertainment for me. But Westworld actually shares a bunch of different lessons. The primary lesson being is that while the Westworld people, they've created this world where you can come in and there's robots, but they look and feel and talk and do everything just like people. You can never tell they're robots, and you can do whatever you want with them. You can kill them, you can rape them, you can start a family with them, you can do whatever. And so they start sending all these rich people into this game world, they call it the Westworld, to basically, entertain them. But what you discover towards the end of the first season, that this entertainment is actually much more to people than that. To many of them, especially to one of the characters, it's more about finding yourself and finding the meaning of life more than anything else. And it's really interesting as a concept. It's great filmmaking, great screenwriting, and I highly recommend you watch it as a marketer. Definitely don't watch it with your kids. It's PG. I would give it like PG-30. I mean, it's just an incredibly violent show, and I highly recommend it for the sake of the lessons. I also recommend you once you watch it, get on YouTube and go search for some videos that explain to you the meaning of the show. In other words, like the lessons from the Westworld, because there's more lessons to it than you initially can grasp, and it really helps for someone else to point these lessons out for you to be able to better retain them, because the show does deliver quite a few powerful messages which you will benefit from. So we got 4 more shows to go. Next one on my list is Seinfeld. Now, the reason Seinfeld is an amazing show is because it's just an example of how you can turn the absolute most mundane and boring thing out of your life into a sitcom episode and make millions, 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 and millions of dollars per season, just like Jerry Seinfeld did. So he takes an absolutely boring everyday scenario like getting soup, right? So going into a soup kitchen or like a diner and getting a soup, and he turns that into a hilarious experience. You can do the same thing with your emails. You can do the same thing with your marketing videos, with your webinars. You can do the same thing with anything that you put out there. And Seinfeld is a great testament of how it's actually done. Right, so my favorite episode by far is the Soup Nazi episode. I highly recommend you check it out. So basically, again, Jerry Seinfeld, what he done is he took like this most mundane thing, the most common thing anyone can do, which is to go to a diner and get some food. He turned that into a hilarious experience. A very, very interesting episode, something that's stuck in my mind for years now, over 10 years. And you can do exactly the same with everything you put out there, starting with your emails. So if you ever struggle to come up with ideas for your marketing emails, for your marketing videos, I highly recommend you check Seinfeld out because it will be an inspiration. The same thing, by the way, I can say about Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is a show by Larry David. He's one of the guys, he's basically a co-creator of Seinfeld along with Jerry Seinfeld. And Larry David, the Curb Your Enthusiasm show, I don't like it as much as I like Seinfeld because Seinfeld doesn't hurt as much. In other words, Larry David's show always hurts. I mean, it's just emotionally hard for me to watch it because he's always stuck in these awkward situations that I would really hate to be stuck in myself. But again, they happen as a result of completely boring everyday things. For example, he's got this one episode. Basically, he's in a coffee shop, goes to the bathroom, leaves the laptop on the table, but he notices a black guy sitting to the right. So he goes to the bathroom, comes back, there's no laptop. So immediately he thinks that black guy stole the laptop, and Larry David is white. And so the entire episode is all about that. It's all about him trying to find out this guy and trying to not make it sound to people that he's a racist because he's looking for a black guy who stole the laptop. And so again, the situation is awkward. I would really hate to be stuck in that situation myself. And you can watch that show for the same reason you would watch Seinfeld, but in my opinion, Seinfeld is just a little lighter. It's kind of like eating that broccoli dipped in chocolate. It's really, really good for you as a marketer. All right, so South Park, I used to watch a lot of Family Guy, and at some point it just got boring because the jokes are just stupid. South Park is used to be stupid, but then it matured into a bigger picture. In other words, they went from having really stupid episodes making fun of just really silly things to then creating episodes that make fun of real issues, to then creating seasons that have an overarching storyline making fun of a bigger issue. For example, they got a whole season devoted to the presidential election between Hillary and Trump, and they make fun of the Trump's political campaign in a really unique and exquisite way. Of course, no holds barred. It's rated R. There's like lots of swearing, lots of sex words and everything, but if you can get past that, South Park just offers you lots of frameworks to use in your marketing to take ideas and make fun of these ideas and turn these ideas into profitable marketing material. Okay, I really recommend you watch that if you're looking to do something like that. So if you're an entertainer, if you're on social media, if you're a podcaster, if you want to write really interesting emails for people, you need to check out South Park because the way they make fun of political issues is just ridiculous. It just I don't think there's anyone out there right now who's better at it than South Park. The one before last that I want to share with you is Top Gear. Now, Top Gear, here's why I love Top Gear. First off, I love cars. I'm just a huge car buff, and Top Gear always reviews all these crazy cars. But what they really do well, and this is one of the reasons why I think I started writing emails really well, is because they take what's what's really boring, what other companies and TV shows do in a really boring way, where they take a car and it's always the same thing. It's like, okay, let's check out the interior, let's check out the engine, let's take it on the road and let's see how it drives. And you get a few shots of, of it going down, up and down hills and stuff like that. And that's it. With Top Gear, the presenters on the show, there's three of them. There's Jeremy, there's Richard, and James. They find unique angles, unique frames through which they want to present cars. And they're not apologetic. They're really unapologetic about the cars they actually like. For example, one of the recent episodes, they've done... they reviewed Jaguars, and they wanted to prove to people, right, that Jaguars are reliable and they're good cars, which of course they're not. They're not reliable and they're not really good cars. There's much better cars out there, but they really love the Jaguars because, the three guys are British and, they sort of proud of the Jaguar as a brand. So what I loved about it is that in spite of having all this proof that Jaguar is a crappy car, they still insisted and tried to prove it through challenges and through different sort of like angles and stories. And and this is really good for you as an email marketer, or as somebody who wants to express an opinion on social media, or somebody who wants to present something on a webinar, because you really cannot influence other people unless you have a concrete position about something. Like if you want to talk about email marketing versus social media, which I talk a lot about, like I'm one-sided to email marketing. And I'm unapologetic about it. And that's one of the things that helps me in business. Same thing with the guys in Top Gear. They often express an opinion that they've decided on that opinion way before they started shooting the show about the car. And then they frame it in a way to make you like it. For example, I remember this one episode when Jeremy was reviewing Ford Mondeo. Right? So Ford Mondeo is like a European version of Ford Taurus, I think. And I used to actually want to have that car. I used to dream of that car. And I know how low I set the bar for myself, but hey, I was only 17 years old. So I really wanted a Ford Mondeo. And Jeremy Clarkson was actually reviewing one. And you know what he did? He brought up a bunch of statistics to show you that it's not a bad car. What he done is that he said there were only like 2,000 of them sold in that year, compared to, say, 10,000 of Aston Martins that were sold that year. So in other words, he says you're basically you're gonna stand out more if you drive a Mondeo than if you drive an Aston Martin. So I mean, that was one of the ways, right? That you take an idea and then you present it in a very interesting form with a concrete opinion attached to it. And that is important. Like if you want to influence people, if you want to have a voice in this marketplace, you absolutely have to be presenting things that way. You cannot be wishy-washy. You cannot be undecided. And so I highly recommend Top Gear if you want to learn how to develop your own voice. All right. And last but not least is the Conan O'Brien. Now, I'm not sure whether Conan is still out there. I haven't watched it in years. But what I liked about Conan O'Brien is two things. First, I really picked up a lot observing him on how to interview people, which is something that became a big part of my online career. I've been interviewing people in marketing for as long as I can remember. That's one of the secrets to developing authority and to developing an audience really, really quickly. You start interviewing other successful people and it sort of rubs on you real quick. In addition, what Conan O'Brien and any other late night show do really well is that they take on things that are happening right now, and they make a joke, make fun of these things. They make a joke out of them, and that is useful. That is useful to you as an email marketer, because you can be writing about things that are happening right this second. They will feel really good to people who read them, and at the same time, you'll be able to spin these things into useful marketing material. So once again, the show list is House of Cards, Breaking Bad, Silicon Valley, Homeland, Better Call Saul, Death Note, Westworld, Seinfeld, South Park, Top Gear, and Conan O'Brien. Now, many of these shows you can get online for free. You can watch the old versions, the new versions, whatever. Top Gear is now the Grand Tour on Amazon. So anyway, if you're into watching TV, if you want to decompress, watch any of these, and I promise you will become a better marketer, a better problem solver, a better thinker, and a better influencer. Not to mention that most of these shows are fiction, right? So you can also become a better storyteller if you pay attention to how the story unfolds. But that's for another time. These are the 11 TV shows that will make you a better marketer. This is Igor Kafitz, and until next time we chat, have a good one.
Thank you for listening to The List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kafitz, and until next time we talk, have a good one.